Ashley with Arbite. We are back with another Debt Collection 101. We're going to be talking about skills every successful collector should have. I have Caitlin from Arbite here as well. And our guest today is going to be Travis Irving with HRI Group. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I guess let's start off with just telling us a little bit about yourself and your agency.
We're a small agency. We're not one of the big ones that has 50, 100 people or something like that. We've got 8. Started in this industry as a dialer, spent 3 days as a dialer, then ended up being a closer, and moved along quite quickly to where I've only been in the industry 2 years and change, but it's been fast paced. I mean, I've owned my own agency now for, I'd say about, I think it's like a year, almost a year and a half, coming up on 2 years, I think, right around there. We stand out among the other agencies, I would have to say, because we don't work a lot of the newer stuff. We're, say, 4th or 5th agency, right around there, but we stand out because we have a certain type of moral standing that we will always adhere to as far as professionalism and respect, something that's very lost among these agencies that I've had to deal with and I hear horror stories of. So we try to kind of set the bar a little bit higher when it comes to certain things, but we're a small but yet very strong and stable, consistent agency, and that's what we always wanted to try to be. I have no aspirations of being a big 50, 100-man office, that's for sure. I don't have the hair for that anymore because it's already gone from starting this place up.
Well, that's awesome to hear, and we've obviously known you almost since the beginning, so it's good to hear that you guys are doing it this way because the industry is just all over the board nowadays. So
So I think for, when you kind of have one of those smaller businesses, the employees that you hire are so important, really making sure that you have good people. So I guess for you, are there kind of skills that you notice your top performing collectors possess that maybe other people don't possess?
I prefer to hire people that have never been in the industry, mainly because they're not shaded. They're not coming with preconceived notions. They're not coming with training that I may or may not approve of, whether if it's better or not, I don't know, / don't care. I want it done our way. And not saying our way is better or worse, but our way is the way that we can be proud of it when we leave the job. So we can hang our hat on and say, I'm proud to do what I'm doing. I want to be, when we're done with each consumer that we talk to, we want them to get off the phone and say, wow, that was probably the nicest agency I've ever spoken to in my life. I wish I had other debts I could pay through them. That would be phenomenal. But that's where we really focus on, is having people to have to deal with an unfortunate, sometimes very embarrassing situation, but knowing that they have help and assistance and are never going to be made to feel less of a person or anything like that. So when you are trying to get to that type of scenario, you're looking for a certain type of person that is not only knowledgeable but caring / understanding, but can know how to take a situation and turn it to where it's a win-win for everybody. If you can't listen and you can't glean certain information just by having a phone conversation because you can't read the body language, the micro expressions, and the little telltale signs of being able to speak to someone in person, you got to do all that over the phone, and that's not something you can teach. You either got it or you don't. So that is one of the 2 biggest things. And the other thing is how well they work with the office. You spend, a lot of people don't realize, you spend more time with the people at your job than you do with your family. Therefore, you have to be able to not only like, but tolerate that person for a unfair amount of time, I guess you could say. So the personalities, the language, the whole thing has to gel. I mean, when you got an office of people that's clicking, like I just doubled my office. So I went from 4 people, almost double. So I went from 4 people to 7 people. Well, I've gone through probably, I think my last count was like 31 to 32 hires in the last 4 months to try to find these 3 people. Are they the best? I don't know. But do they work with our office? Absolutely. And when you have a team that's able to work together towards a common goal with the same type of mentality, there's no way you cannot succeed.
Yeah, I agree. I think having that personality match in the office is so important. And it's almost one of those things I think people underestimate. If you're just looking at a resume, you don't always get that. And I mean, I hope my accounts never end up in collections, but I have to say that if they ever did, your office is probably the office that I would want to handle them. So I know that you
We'll
guys
be
do a
happy
great
to
job.
collect on you. We'll cut you a good deal, okay?
Oh, great. Thanks.
Yeah, I think you kind of touched on this with that last question, but I guess this is going to be more specific during an actual interview. So what do you look for in a new collector during the interview process to decide whether or not they are a good fit for collections?
Very first thing is vocabulary. You got to be able to use more than the word and like. You say and like more than 3 times and in 2 sentences, see you later. That's like the very first thing. Second thing, when you're talking to a consumer or a CM, as we call it, you're talking to a CM, you can't just throw out a bunch of language that they don't understand. You got to humanize yourself with them. You've got to level yourself in their thought process and their mentality and their speech, their understandings, because you can say one sentence 10 different ways and have it mean 10 different things. So their ability to have a discussion with me about absolutely the most random and pointless things and have it be interesting, have me to be captivated, that's important. Because number one thing that happens when you're on a call is they hang up within 30 seconds. With those two things, I can make it work. Oh, and computer knowledge. They got to actually know how to type and save an Excel file. That would be awesome. You could teach the easy skip tracing. You could teach a lot of the skills, but those are the two core things to it. Without those, you're screwed because you can't teach those two things.
No.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess for you, what do you think is the biggest thing? Maybe somebody, I know a lot of people, unfortunately in 2020 kind of lost their jobs and are looking for new positions. What do you think is just the biggest misunderstanding people have about collections if maybe they're, getting into the industry for the first time or interviewing for jobs in the industry?
You may be capable of doing this job, but whether you are good at it, it's a whole nother discussion. And it's something to where if you don't have the hustle, because there's going to be way more slow down times than there are going to be up, and you got to learn how to maximize your highs and minimize your lows. If you don't have that desire, that dig, or I call it hustle, you're not going to survive. You've got to be so motivated and so you've got to eat, breathe, and live this industry to be able to have it to be profitable and give you a great future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what you kind of said about having to have that innate hustle is so true. I think, so many people, they kind of get a job and want to almost just press the easy button. Collections is definitely one of those fields that I don't think that works for. You really just have to have that passion and that hustle to wake up every day and, the face of being told no over and over and keep doing it. So, yeah.
I'm curious, this is not a question, but I'm just curious what you think is the biggest misunderstanding from consumers' point of view in collections.
There is no law that says a debt has to be on a credit report.
Mm.
Nobody knows this. I mean, and I'm 98% confident I'm right on this because I've looked everywhere, and everything I've ever seen says that it's up to the agency that owns the debt to put it on. Well, a lot of these people don't. Why? Because people just sue people just because they own their debt, and that's ridiculous. So that is one of the biggest things. I mean, it blows my mind that is the way it's supposed to be, because if there was an easier process or method for debt to be validated and required to be on a credit report, you know how much nicer and happier people's lives would be if they had a debt that they had to take care of. I mean,
So what can someone who is looking to get into collections start doing today to prepare for that type of environment?
go get a job at an agency and get the worst, nastiest, most horrible position at that agency. If you can survive that, then you will survive being a collector, a dialer, agency owner, a broker. It doesn't matter. You got to put yourself in the hardest, worst position possible. you got to learn how to fade the hard stuff first, because if you think it's just going to be all, goofballs and gumdrops throughout the process, you are in for a big awakening. That's one thing I wish that would change with the industry, is that there are so many agencies out there that are aggressive. Okay, the sheriff's not going to come to your door. Not everything's a scam. Talk to the people. We always can get a hold of people. We always provide documentation. We have ways for you to be able to confirm and validate the debt. I mean, there's a million ways, but that's the one big thing that's always bothered me, is the fact that everybody thinks it's a scam.
Yeah.
So
This,
that's the hard part.
this question wasn't actually on our list, but it kind of goes off of what you were saying. I guess for you, do you feel like it's almost an innate trait that you have to kind of have that mental toughness to be in collections, or do you think that there's something that you can do over time to kind of build that up? What's your thoughts on that?
No, you can't build that up. You either got it or you don't. I mean, that's one of those. It's one of those God-given gifts. Either what's they called? The gift of gab.
Yeah.
Okay. You either got it or you don't. But I will say this, is that I've hired a couple of completely introvert people, like say a word maybe once every couple months, like one word, and you put them on the phone and they get to completely be whoever they want and will surprise the living daylights out of you. I mean, one of my top collectors is a person that is a very big introvert, very quiet, doesn't say much, does his own thing. You put him on the phone and you're like, who the hell is this guy? Where did he come from? And it just blows you away. So if you have it inside and you are just maybe scared of doing it, or not sure if you have the strength to do it, you've got to try it, because this industry will change you, hopefully for the positive, and it'll teach you things about yourself that you never knew you had. So I know it did for me. I never thought I'd be able to do something like this, but I forced myself to give it a try, and it worked out well.
Awesome. Yeah, well, this is great. Those are all the questions we have for you. So thank you again for everything you do with Arbite and joining us today. And for those of you watching, thank you. Like and subscribe below. We'll see you next time.